Hey Jesse, how's it going?
Oh, good mate. Very early in the morning, but
Oh, well, thank you for staying up, man. And with Louis, is it Louis or Lewis?
Lewis.
Lewis,
Lewis. Hey Lewis, how's it going?
good, good. Am I
Right,
in? Can you see me?
we can't see you yet, but if you press your turn on the camera button,
I'm going to put on live.
yeah, there's a little button in the bottom left-hand corner with a video symbol.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
So our mission statement on this channel is to end the war on drugs, take all those resources of locking kids up in private prisons and go after the predators, the super predators of the world, people who are really harming society. Instead of, almost a million arrests a year for weed possession at the peak of the war on drugs, we think that's absolutely insane. And we see all these pedophile priests getting slaps on the wrists, bringing in these high-priced lawyers. So the work you guys are doing ties in exactly with that. So you've got the first-hand knowledge of the cocaine cartels from Lewis, and then Jesse. What brought you to this project? I'll ask you that first.
And Jesse?
Well, I wrote a book on Bon Scott of AC/DC, who I claim in my last book that died of a drug overdose. And I went down to Miami in 2015. I made friends with some people down there. And after I finished the book on Bon, an individual got in touch and said, look, I know a guy in Miami who's thinking of writing a book. He's had an amazing life in the cocaine cartels. He's been talking to some people in Hollywood, getting treatments of his story, but he's not quite happy and he wants to put it all down in a book. Would you talk to him? So it was the end of 2017 and Lewis and I started WhatsApping pretty much daily for 2-3 months before we kind of decided that we would actually embark on this project. But by that stage I had sort of flagged it with Penguin Random House in Sydney, and they were already interested in the book, and we had an offer to go ahead and write his life story. So over the next 2 years, we pretty much got together every day, just like we are now, and just started talking and recording.
So, Lewis, I was involved in ecstasy trafficking back in the 90s, had people smuggling ecstasy from Holland through Mexico, getting smuggled over the Arizona border. And most of my male friends from back then are now dead. That lifestyle leads to death, prison, mental hospital, the police. Just looking at what you've done is absolutely breathtaking when I was researching you. How are you still alive?
That's the way the cards played. Why am I still alive? I don't know. A lot of things must have played in my favor, obviously. I had a lot of controversial situations. I got kidnapped. I was in the business for 25 years. So you can imagine, some days were great, some days weren't so good, but I had a lot of controversial situations in a very highly volatile business. How am I still alive? I don't have an answer. The cards played out, the planets were aligned. Maybe the type of person I am, I always knew one thing: not to piss people off intentionally. If you piss them off, let it be, because it's not your intention to piss them off. You have to come across a certain way. You have to be smart. You got to read people in this business. You know it. You read people wrong, and brother, it's over. So you got to read people. Like, when I was in Mexico, the last thing you should do is, a Colombian go to Mexico and say, it's my game, it's my merchandise. I represent the Colombian cartels. I'm in charge. You do what I say. That'll go over once or twice. In the end, they'll plot and they'll bring you down. The Mexicans will eat you alive. When you're in Mexico, you're in their territory. Maybe your merchandise, but in the end, they've got control over you. So you just got to read people, and it's a people game, like anything. People are very important part of the formula here.
So I've written 5 books about Pablo Escobar. He died in the 90s. That was very historical. My associates in Mexico told me, there are things that you just can't go there presently. So Jesse, are you worried about blowback from going into this realm of cartels who are worth multi-billions and can just wipe people out anywhere on the face of the earth?
Yeah, good question. It was obviously something that I raised very early with Lewis, and he was quite upfront about it, that there were certain individuals that sort of feature in his story that we should not piss off. So, your normal sort of temptation to maybe describe someone in a colourful way is suddenly kind of excised from your manuscript. You just play it very cool. You don't take any risks with certain individuals, and that's certainly what we did. That said, Lewis is fairly, forthright in his opinions and his descriptions, and he lays it all on the table, very authentically, which is, I think, why the book worked for me ultimately in the end, because his voice was coming through. And he didn't pull any punches. But obviously, as the drug trade very well, a lot of these people are dead now, but dead people have brothers, they have cousins, they have sisters, ex-wives, and so on. So you can't be too careful when you're writing a book like this.
Yeah, I mean, look at Saviano with his round-the-clock bodyguards. Yeah. So, Lewis, what got you into this in the first place?
Well, I was working at a radio station, and before that I was going to college, and it was always available to me here in Miami in smaller quantities, and I always thought it was a good way to supplement your income. So I started dealing ounces up at Georgetown, and while I was at the radio station I used to sell to the DJs, but that was all small time. And suddenly I met this girl, and I flipped out for her, and, very attractive girl. We hit it off, and she just happened to be a top-notch distributor for Medellin Cartel here in Miami. And that's how I started. I started with her.
What year was that then?
That was around 78, 79.
So is this in the Blanca era, or is that after that?
No, it was exactly during that time when, we used to buy our liquor at Crown Liquor. We used to go there and buy, Old Brion, Lafitte Rochelle, Petrus, whatever, all our liquor, and, spend $3,000-4,000 at a shot just buying wine or whatever. And when I started going out with Bia, it was a few months after that they hit the Crown Liquor Store with that party wagon. And the people that Bia worked with here at first, Poli and his group, they had a very vicious reputation from Medellin. They called him Poli because he killed a lot of policemen. He was already a bandido while Griselda was still coming up. Okay, he's older than Griselda. But I remember we used to hang out at the Omni because he used to shop a lot at a place called Galliano or Galliani. And a few times we'd be somewhere, says there's Griselda's people. Griselda's people didn't want anything to do with Poli. They respected and they knew who he was. Poli had 2 guys with him, Joel, Poli, Pedro el Gordo, and then Mario came in. These people were very respected from Medellin. They were feared. They were who they were. They had a vicious reputation for, allowing no mistakes. You get killed. With them, you get killed. There's no tomorrow. There's no I'm sorry. You get killed. End of story. And he, while we worked with Poli, the Ochoas didn't want to work with us. The Piedrahitas didn't want to work with us. Nobody else wanted to work with us because it was such an intense situation of violence with these guys. And these guys were who they were. And I just happened to fall in there. Did I plan this? No. It just so happened we landed with probably one of the most vicious people with the most vicious reputation at the time. Even Griselda's people didn't want any part of it. They just didn't want any part of it. It was a coin toss because Griselda was nuts. She had some very good people with her, vicious people. But in this case, I've got to tell you, it's a coin toss. Probably with, leaning towards Poli's advantage.
Yeah, I think Narco should go back and do a series on Griselda. That would be fascinating. So Jesse,
It
then,
was hell of a story.
yeah, when you're writing a book, originally I was with Random House. Things have got to go through the legal department, and if you write about someone, you've got to send them paperwork, whereby they sign off and say it's all accurate. We won't sue the publisher. In a book this complex and with the danger factor, how does that work?
To be honest, I was really surprised in the end how little sort of lawyers raked over it. It seemed that I was able to kind of, verify pretty well, certain things that Lewis had told me. And at a certain point, with things that you can't verify, you just have to take the risk. Otherwise you completely gut your book and you've got no action and you've got, nothing that the reader's going to be interested in. So, Lewis was talking about this character, Poli. I mean, you Google the name Poli, you're not going to find anything on this bloke. But according to Lewis, according to a Miami detective that I met, while I was there in Florida, Poli was, as Lewis says, the most feared kind of enforcer in Miami, and this guy was on the streets working to take him down. So, I met the guys who were involved in actually, the front line of bringing these people to justice. And obviously a big part of writing a book like this is that you have to bring in the, the perspectives of other people. And certainly I did that with the law enforcement agents who were involved in, Lewis's capture, from US Customs, the DEA, right through to, people who were working, with the Brits. And I got their perspectives and they verified everything. And it was very easy to establish that, what Lewis was telling me was the truth. So, to answer your question, I tried to verify as much as I could, and where I couldn't, I made that pretty plain in the story, and let readers make up at their own mind about whether it's the truth or not.
So, Lewis, our research has led us to believe that while George H.W. Bush was fighting this war on drugs and posing with record cocaine seizures, that the CIA were importing coke and weapons were going on those same flights back down to Nicaragua. We've got Oliver North's diary entries talking about visiting cocaine labs. What is the relationship between the cartels and the CIA?
Well, back then it was very real, just as you say. The CIA was not funded through government or through Congress for the Contra War, so they funded it through the cocaine for arms. The CIA and drugs, what can I tell you? Jesus, we're involved in Afghanistan now. Suddenly Afghanistan's the #1 producer of heroin. Before, you never heard of Afghanistan heroin. It was always in the Southeast, out of the Burmese Triangle, when we happened to be in Vietnam. So you've got a lot of situations where you have airlines that are linked to the CIA bringing in drugs, whether it's heroin or cocaine. So, the money is so big, it's so, under the radar, that yes, it's very tempting and it's very easy for them to do it. So how much? I don't know. How it's happening right now, I don't know, but that it's happened and it probably continues to happen, yes, I believe it does.
And if people want to research that further, I suggest they Google Air America, Southern Air Transport, Barry Seal, etc. So, Jesse, you said you interviewed cops who arrested some of these villains. Did you interview any of the villains yourself? Did you have any hairy moments with the bad guys?
No, not so much, because as I said at the beginning, we're pretty warned off going too close to sort of criminal networks. Also, we wanted to kind of not alert anyone that we were working on this book, and then sort of invite any kind of repercussions. So most of the stories sort of involve people who were already deceased. So no, but I did meet with certainly a lawyer for some of the biggest cartel names in the business in Miami, and got his perspective, and made sure that we weren't stepping on anyone's toes, and got the all clear. So I did as much as possible to not raise any alarm bells or anything like that.
So, Lewis, then, during your many years in the trafficking profession, what were your hairiest moments?
Listen, every day, I must admit, okay, I enjoyed what I did. I liked my business. I was very much involved. I had no plans of getting out. But every day is a situation where you could get a phone call that could be a very upsetting situation. Okay, a load goes down, somebody does the wrong thing. Those are, it's always very, you're always a little nervous about that. Now that I got kidnapped a few times, those weren't exactly fun. I almost got thrown into a pit of crocodiles, and I was saved by the bell. I was 4 minutes away from being thrown into a pit of crocodiles, and a phone call in reference to a pool game that I had lost the night before, that I owed the guy $250,000, saved me. Okay, so, and the other time, I was 21 days held, and for 21 days, you're thinking, I may die today. That's not fun. And, the other time I got kidnapped by the guerrillas, and then we just worked out a deal. Instead of buying the merchandise from the locals, we bought it from the guerrillas. And, what can I tell you? That was not that rough of a situation. I mean, at first it was, but it cleared up really quick. But even though I loved my business was a business of high stress. You worry, because you're responsible. That's why you make it to where you make it, because you actually worry about things. You don't take them lightly. But it's a very risky situation, without a doubt.
During the 21 days, what were your conditions of confinement like?
The first 3 days were not that great. I was handcuffed to a bed in just a low rent apartment with 3 or 4 people, bodyguards there. And, just ate the regular food that was served, rice and beans and a little meat or whatever. I mean, not terrible conditions, just handcuffed to a bed. Then I got taken to a farm that had a swimming pool. And, they told me, listen, you're here, but we're here also. If you try to run, we're going to shoot you in the leg. Because right now, the guy that told me that said, if it were up to me, I'd fill you full of holes, because he didn't like me. But right now we're going to shoot you in the leg, and we're going to have to remove the bullet. Believe me, we don't have any anesthesia, we don't have any of that. So we suggest you don't run. Just take it easy and read a book and take it easy. But every time that phone would ring for whatever other reason, you would think it's the phone call for you. All right, take him out of his misery. I knew they were never going to torture me in that situation. They just put a bullet in my head. And I made really good friends with the bodyguards, the people that were taking care of me. They were all saying, we like you so much. For us, it's going to be a tough one. It's the first time that we're going to draw straws on this one, because none of us want to do it. It's pretty interesting to situation that arose there with these guys. After I got released, they all called me to work for me. My wife had our first child, and they all sent her gifts. So my wife was receiving gifts from El Búho, El Caballo, El Diablo, all these people, and they were the ones, the bodyguards that were taking care of me. They all wanted to go work with me in Mexico.
Wow.
So these guys were, no pushovers. These guys had a hell of a resume. These guys were good at what they did.
Wow,
So,
absolutely fascinating. And if people want to find out more about the story, they're going to have to check the book out. Do you want to tell us, Jesse, where that book is available? And we will be putting the links in the description box below the video.
Yeah, it's available in Britain through John Blake Books, in Australia through Penguin Random House, and it's coming out in the US in November through Roman and Littlefield.
And that's called Pure Narco.
That's correct.
Okay, so yeah, if you want to, if people are interested, then those links are in the description box below this video. I've got loads of more questions for you guys, but we have run out of time. So perhaps at some point in the future, if you're up for it, maybe we could do something else.
Sure, that'd be great.
Thanks very much for coming on, guys, and spending time with us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Shaun.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.